Celina Thompson, welcome to the Rocky Mountain Writer Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to talk to you about Colorado Gold 2025. And I especially appreciate the fact that we're chatting so early to get some of these details out there so people can start planning and thinking about what's coming up in later this year in September, right? We have the
Yep,
dates.
we do. It is going to be September 25th through the 28th, I believe.
Great. Personally, I just love that late September time. I think it takes it away from the crunch of Labor Day where it used to be.
Yep.
I think it was great this year. It just felt like it fell in a great spot, but obviously there's lots of opinions out there about that, but that really seemed to work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good time. Like, there's not a lot of other writers' conferences going on too close to it, so people can plan and have a breather between them. It's a really nice time, and it's so beautiful, the weather that we have in Colorado in September. It makes
Yeah.
it really nice to get into that writery, cozy mood.
Yeah. So when did you took over to run the
Mhm.
2025 conference? When did you know you'd be in charge?
It kind of happened last minute. I went to Bernadette and was like, "Hey, I want to help out with the conference next year and volunteer." And she was like, "We actually need someone to chair." And so by the end of the conference, I thought about it and it just kept weighing on my heart because I have an extensive background in event planning. I've been doing it for about a decade now. And so I went to Bernadette and was like, I feel like I'm comfortable taking on this as long as I have support. And the support from the RMFW community has been so overwhelmingly positive. Like, I could not ask for a better team.
That's great. That's great. So what was your background in event planning? Was it corporate? Was it
I started off in technical theater. So I was a stage manager and I did a whole bunch of different plays. I was working at that in a professional sense, which is really hard to do, to actually pay your bills with tech theater because it's not a high paying profession. But I was doing it, and then I had some medical stuff and I had to transition. And I joined Meeting Professionals International and ran some social media for different events and that kind of thing. And it's just been something that's been a part of my life in some way, shape, or form for a decade now.
very, very good? Well, before we dive in on
Mhm.
all the details and announcing the theme and all that, I just quickly want to touch base and ask you if there's anything new with your writing. I know you have one book out already. Is there anything else coming up?
I have a book that'll be coming out this summer. It's called La Mamacita Mafiosa, and it's a dark romance about a woman who runs the Mexican mafia.
Wow. And how does one even research or dive into that kind of world? Wow.
So it was inspired by the overturning of Roe v. Wade, actually, and the laws that were subsequently passed in my home state of Texas. My family is from Mexico on my dad's side. And so it's a lot of my culture and the things that I grew up with, but it's about how circumstances can kind of force us into a life path that we don't expect, and how we deal with that and can make the world a better place for it.
Fantastic. Wow. And you think it'll be out this summer?
This summer, yes.
That's great.
I'm working on specific dates, but that should be coming very soon.
Very, very good. Well, let's get back to the conference. You sent along a nice outline of things we need to cover. Much appreciated for that. I think the listeners of the podcast appreciate that as well. Anybody who is thinking about coming to Colorado Gold, and of course, everybody should, will get a really clear idea of the improvements. And one thing I'm just going to say right out of the chute is one of the cool things about Colorado Gold is it just keeps changing. It's dynamic. It has changed every single year that I've gone. There's always been some innovation there. I think it's a very, the organization this isn't me, this is you all, the board, everybody really seems to listen and observe and say, how do we make this better? So,
We try to
yeah,
take as much of the feedback as we can and implement it. And like the biggest feedback that we had from this year, we've already addressed and it's already been resolved for next year. We had a little bit of a technical issue this past year with the projectors, and we invested in entirely new projectors. We worked with the hotel. We actually been able to test them in the space, and they are so crisp and so clear. And so that's just going to elevate the quality of our presentations this year. But I'm really excited for that and for some of the other technical advances that we're doing with the conference this year as well.
fantastic. Well, let's dive in. Announce the theme,
Okay.
Celina.
So our theme this year is the power of prose, utilizing writing as a superpower to change the world. And this was inspired by a webinar that was hosted by Tananarive right before the election. It was called Scare Up the Vote, and it was about getting people to go out and vote. And so many people talked about how it was a ton of horror authors and people in the horror entertainment and film industry. And so many of those people talked about how stories changed their lives and how it made a difference and their lives are better because of X, Y, or Z story. And it really got me thinking about the power that we have as authors to change the world for someone. We might not change the entire world with every book, but there are definitely moments that we have had as readers that have changed our lives, and we have the power to do that for others as well. I recently had an experience. I was presented at Darkness Con last month and had a woman come up to me. She's blind, and when I told her that I write about my disabilities, she lit up and almost started crying because she was so excited that someone was showing that representation. And if we can make those moments for one or two people, then that makes what we do entirely worth it, in my opinion.
Fantastic. Fantastic. All right. Virtual conference.
Yes. So this was the other technology that I'm really excited for the conference. We've invested in equipment to be able to record the entire conference. So
Wow.
every single workshop that we do is going to be available as a virtual option, and we're doing it in two ways. In the past, when we've tried to do a virtual conference, we've only offered it as the entire conference virtually. This year, we're also adding it as an addition to the in-person conference. I know in conferences past, for me, there have been scheduling things where I've wanted to go to two or three of the workshops that are happening at the same time, and that's physically impossible. But with the virtual add-on, I can go to whichever one sounds the most interesting and go back and watch them, the other ones later, so I don't feel like I'm missing anything. And with how much we've grown, I feel like it's really necessary that we have this, because at any given time, we'll have 11 workshops or some form of programming going. And over the course of 3 days, that's a ton of classes that people can get excited for. But trying to hit all of the ones that you want in 3 days, it's just physically impossible.
Yeah. Do we know what the participation rate was in the virtual conference elements last year?
So it got canceled, but for the conference, we were,
That's right. I forgot.
yeah.
Yep.
So this will actually be our first year to do it fully. We had interest in it last year and we were going to borrow the equipment, but it was a little bit too close
That's
to
right.
the conference that we were borrowing the equipment from. But we've invested in our own equipment this year. And
Wow.
so there shouldn't be that issue. We're also going to do a couple of other things with the virtual conference. The Thursday intensives that we have are going to be offered virtually as well. And because we have the virtual option, we're going to do a buy one, get one half off. So if you want to do both of the Thursday intensives, you can get the second one for 50% off and not have to worry about trying to be in two places at once.
Yeah. In case anybody is just tuning into this whole discussion
Mhm.
and doesn't know our terminology, the Thursday intensives are kind of a pre-conference separate classes that are much more sustained, longer format, and the topics will be announced at a later date, most likely. But they're pre-conference chance to really dig deep on a topic. And then the master classes are Friday morning, also pre-conference. But again, those topics come along at a later time. Yep.
We're in the process of working on them already. We don't have
Okay.
anything set, but we do have one of the people set for both a Thursday intensive and a Friday masterclass, and that is our first keynote speaker. Our first keynote speaker is super excited. He's almost as excited for the conference as I am. And he wants to do all of the things for us. And he just has such a passion for helping people grow with their writing. It's really inspiring and heartwarming. And our keynote for this year is going to be Jonathan Maberry. He has written so many books. I can't even begin to list them because we'd probably be here for 2 hours just listing all of the
Yeah,
books that he's written. But he's also done work in comic books. So I think it's just serendipitous that he's going to be here for our conference that's superhero themed.
right,
So,
right. Excellent. Yeah, he'll be a draw for sure.
yeah.
And just a quick question, that the virtual conferences, the virtual
Uh-huh.
opportunity, is that two-way? Do you just sit and get, or do you have a chance to communicate into the class?
Uh, Say that one more time. The
So,
video cut out.
so if you're sitting at home taking a virtual class,
Mhm.
can you ask a question or via chat or audio? Is it
So we
two-way?
we won't have that capability because that would involve live streaming, and we don't have the technology to live stream 11 different things at the same time.
Right, right.
So how it's going to happen most likely, and we're still working out some of the logistics with this, is that it'll be recorded, and then every couple of sessions we'll do a mass upload of the recordings that will get sent out to a link that people who have registered for that can access.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Excellent. All right. Sponsorship.
Sponsorship. That's another major change this year. So we have entirely revamped the sponsorship process, and it's now a build your own sponsorship package. So we have different things like um, advertising on our social media, being in the program, having a booth in our vendor alley where you can interact with people one-on-one, sponsoring a classroom for the entire weekend, all of these different options that you can choose to be a part of our sponsorship program and really build what works best for you. And what I like about this method is that there are so many different options. Like the lowest sponsorship level for this is just a business card ad, and it's only $20. So it really fits in anyone's budget. We're reaching out to a ton of people this year, a lot of local coffee shops and bookstores and writing programs like MFAs in the Colorado area. So we're really heavily focusing on not just the writing industry, but things that are local, places that you might want to have a book signing so that we can connect our authors with things that are close to them and not just all centered around Denver where the conference is.
Gotcha. Very, very good. All right. Call for presenters. That's coming right up, I assume.
Yes, that will be opening up on March 1st and going through the end of March. And we're asking that there be some kind of tie-in to our superhero theme. this year, even if that's just tweaking the name so that instead of saying working with your protagonist on a workshop, it's defining your hero or something fun, so that it really makes the entire conference something that you can get excited about. And we're hoping that by having the theme run throughout the conference, through the programming, through the decor, through all of these different elements, that it'll help make each conference each year a more unique and special experience. And then we're
Excellent.
also asking this year for our presenters to help out in a couple of other things, either volunteering with the pitch sessions, hosting a table at the banquets, because we really want all of our attendees to feel welcome and like there's people there and supporting them, or doing a mentorship session of some sort. And so our compensation structure for our presenters this year has changed a little bit. We're going to do an hour for every, or $100 for every hour of programming that is given in the conference. And if you do 3 or more hours of programming and a couple hours of like the pitch help or the banquet hosting, then the conference will be completely comped for our presenters.
Very good. And I know there's a committee being formed to evaluate the conference proposals. Pretty large committee each year that comes together to look at them all, and hopefully it's a very fair process. But folks who, hopefully I shouldn't say that, it is a very fair and a lot of discussion involved. But folks who want to present need to get their proposals in. I think last year only about half of the proposals were accepted just based on what's actually possible to present in 2.5 days. So, yep.
Yep. And I would encourage everyone to send in a proposal, because even if it didn't get accepted in years past, it might be this year. We really want the conference to be well-rounded and have a very diverse amount of classes so that there's something for everyone. And it may just be that we got a bunch of proposals in a similar area that year before. So it's always changing.
Right, right. All right. Call for volunteers.
Yes. So with all of the things that are changing this year, we're going to need a ton of help. And since we're a nonprofit, we're almost entirely volunteer run. The things that we'll need the most help with this year is going to be pre-conference prep and setup. Last year, we had 350 people attend the conference, which is incredible. And so we put together all of those bags ahead of time, and that just takes a lot of manpower. We'll also have to set up the technology for recording all of the rooms and the projectors. So anyone with tech background, we greatly appreciate your help. If you want to help and don't have a tech background, we will also be doing a training for all of our volunteers that are open to helping us with the technology on how that setup works and troubleshooting some of the most common issues. We'll also need help with front desk check-in and picking up our VIPs from the airport. So that's agents and editors and our keynote speakers, which is a really invaluable opportunity for our volunteers because it's one-on-one time with our VIPs.
And if you can drive, and I recommend that because it worked for me. It's a really great opportunity. Make a friend.
It's a special way to connect with them.
Yep.
Um, and then we'll also have need assistance in our pitch room, because that's another thing that we're making a slight modification for. Last year, we had 6 agents or editors hearing pitches on Saturday, and we completely booked out every pitch session. And so we're adding 2 more agents this year. We're going to do 8 agents and editors hearing pitches. We may even open it up to Saturday, or not just Saturday, but a couple hours on Friday and a couple hours on Sunday, because we want everyone to have that opportunity. And so we'll need help um, facilitating the pitch room, and then moderators for class, and then just a last couple of things to clean up the conference at the end, like loading all of the equipment back into a car to go to storage. And a new thing for our volunteers this year, we normally have the kickoff party on Thursday, and we'll still be doing that, but we'll also be giving the virtual conference add-on to all of our volunteers. So if you take the time to help us out, you don't have to worry about missing something that you want to go to, because we'll have those recordings available for you.
That's a really good incentive, strong incentive, I would say. Yeah. Well, there's, just running down those volunteer opportunities really shows there's a lot kind of behind the scenes that just makes this all happen, because there's so many moving parts once you're in the middle of the conference itself. It's really
Exactly.
flying right along.
And we're
Or,
one of the largest conferences, and we've grown so much in the past few years. I only expect us to continue growing. And so the more we grow, the more help we're going to need.
yep, yep. All right, you've already mentioned our first keynote. How many total
Mhm.
keynotes are you looking for?
We'll have 2 keynote speakers this year.
Okay,
We have one that is tentatively confirmed. We're waiting on a contract, but as soon as we have the contract signed and the press kit back, then we'll be announcing our other keynote as well.
great, great. Well, so how do you feel at this point? Here we are in mid-January, and we're, many months out, but are you feeling pretty confident about the whole plan?
Very confident. I'm so excited for this. Everyone seems to be so excited for the conference. It is a lot of work, but thankfully we're transitioning more to a committee for conference than one person trying to do everything. And we have such a good team. A lot of the team that we have this year are people who have worked in the roles that they're filling this year in previous conferences, so they're very experienced, and everyone's very excited.
Yeah.
It's a little bit addictive energy, just to be around so many people that are so enthusiastic about it. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun, especially since we're taking a fun theme and incorporating it into everything. It should be an experience unlike any conference before. Um, and we just want people to enjoy themselves. That's the
Yep.
biggest part.
Yep. Um, just to reconfirm, the location isn't changing. It's the Hyatt in Aurora.
Correct.
Right.
Um, I believe this is our last year on contract with them. And so I don't know if 2026 will be at the same location, simply because we've grown so much that we may outgrow it with if we continue at this rate.
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
but this
It,
year we're at the conference center in Aurora again.
yeah. Which really seemed to be a great facility, just the way it was all
Mhm.
laid out and everything. Um, and let's see, do we know when registration will open, or early
Yes.
bird and all that?
Early registration is going to open on May 1st.
Oh, wow. Great.
So a few months, but I feel like we're going to blink and it'll be here already.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep, for sure. What other details do we need to touch on or promote, or
I
just
think that's most of it.
talking?
Um, we will have our presenters give their presentations and their pitches in March, and then we should know the classes by mid-April. So we'll have the selection, maybe not a set schedule, but at least which classes are going to happen by mid-April.
Fantastic. And people really should just block that time out. Just go to your calendar now and block the time out. Block the
Mhm.
dates out. And maybe you haven't decided yet if you're going to register, but don't let anything get in that way of making it possible for you to come if you ultimately decide you are going to come. You don't want to say, somebody else booked you on another trip and oops. So make sure you keep those dates open now. Go to your calendar and just save the date for Colorado Gold. Do you want to just touch on the dates again, just to remind everybody?
Yes, it's going to be September 25th through September 28th. And I highly recommend registering and getting everything set up sooner rather than later. I know this past year we had to open up 2 room blocks at the hotel because the first one booked out so quickly. I would not be surprised if we have to do that again. So if you can get your travel and your hotel reservations made earlier, that's ideal.
Yep. Great. Well, Celina, thank you for everything. Just like with all our podcast guests, we always like to end on a book recommendation or maybe just a writer you think more people should be reading, just to keep the focus on what we're all here for, which is great stories.
Of course. My favorite book right now is Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. It took a few twists and turns there at the end that I was not expecting, but it was surprisingly feminist. And I absolutely loved that. I was not expecting that. It's a really unique perspective, and it made me feel really um, tied in with my culture. And I would love to see more people read more books with different cultures.
Fantastic. Well, Celina, thank you so much for this rundown and for all you're doing to help pull the conference together. And
Yes.
we'll look for other podcast guests to help promote the conference itself as we get rolling into the spring and summer. So thank you.
Hey, awesome. Thank you so much, Mark.